Welcome back, everybody. Today is another session with Rob Mitchell and myself, Vadim. And today we're going to talk about just two topics, but they're going to be really good topics, important, and we hope you get a lot of value out of it. And the first topic is actually, before I tell you the second topic, we're going to jump right into the first one. And before we do, I want to welcome Rob to another interview. Hi, Rob.
Hey, Vadim, thanks for having me in today.
Yeah, thank you. And let's jump right into it. Recent issue that's come up, and I've had a few traders ask me this question. How does one, and I'm talking about like practical advice, and I kind of want to see, I kind of want to compare your answer to what I told to the few individuals. Basically, the question was, how do I um, how do I prevent, how do I let my winners run? How do I stop myself from taking quick profits?
Yeah, I was actually meeting with a gentleman today on this exact issue.
No,
We
perfect.
were discussing it. Yeah, this exact issue. Um, in prior interviews, I think we've. I'm gonna describe this on a couple of different levels, and then we'll explore a couple of things about what you can do about this. Um, and we've discussed in other of the interview series about the fight or flight response.
Hmm.
Fight or flight response is simply it's an innate response, meaning that it is instinctual.
Hmm.
For example, you don't have to spend your day going around wondering if you know something's lurking, or lunging out of the shadows at you at speed, because your brain has a center devoted to in it for objects that are moving at a high rate towards you. Okay, and what that does, if you see something that's coming into your field of vision moving at a really high rate, it doesn't require your conscious attention for you to move out of the way. This happens all the time. A guy steps off the curb. There's a bus coming. Whoa, it's like, right. That is a reflex response that is innate, and that enables you to get out of harm's way, because the primary objective of your unconscious mind, or any animal for that matter, is to preserve the body. You're going to
Hmm.
preserve your body first, and you don't need to be conscious or thinking. That's not the same brain that solves, 5 plus 7 equals 12, right?
Hmm.
It's a different part of your more primordial part of your brain structure. Now, when you are triggered into that response, you're going to do one of three things. Either you're going to freeze. In the animal kingdom, that would be an animal that plays dead when it comes under attack.
Hmm.
Certain animals do that. That's number one. Number two, you're going to stand your ground and fight.
Hmm.
As a wolverine or a skunk, right?
Hmm.
And number three would be you're going to flee. That would be like an antelope or a deer or something like that, right?
Hmm.
You flee. So you're going to do one of those three things, and that could vary. So what happens to a lot of traders is, and this is part of the problem, when you are trading or analyzing your ongoing trade, you may feel like you're under attack. So it's not dissimilar response to something coming into your field of vision really fast. You feel as though you're under attack, and that's not a natural feeling, because if you have that sensation, you protect yourself and then you get on with your day, right?
Hmm.
But humans, your neural pathways don't know the difference between an internal and external stimulus.
Mm-hmm.
So something that's putting me under attack, by the way, just a competitive gesture, and all guys know this fundamentally. Bring it on, hey, a little shove and bring it on, Okay, that puts you into fight or flight, boom, like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, being in a trade can make you feel threatened.
Mm.
You feel threatened, you go into fight or flight. The second you do that, all the rationality in your brain shuts down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if you're under pressure to preserve the body, the last thing you're doing is thinking about what you're doing with the family tonight, or solving a math problem, or getting your taxes done, or whatever life's got going with you right now. You're not thinking about any of that. All the 100% of the resources will go towards preserving the body. So the brain, the rational mind, becomes really dumb under those circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
And we've also talked about this kind of stuff with respect to like sports analogies. Okay. And I could also use a driving analogy. First time you got in a car to drive it, and even more so if it was a stick shift, right? So it's like, okay, you got all these pedals, you got to pull this handle, there's a 3 on the tree or whatever, you got to steer the thing, you got to be watching, there's stuff in your mirror, pedestrians could be stepping out. There's 100 things to keep track of, right? Once you master the skill of driving, you drive all the way across town and not even remember a single thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it becomes what is not natural at all, or innate or instinctual, can become run programs for that in your brain. So when you are trading, for example, you come under these kinds of more basic structures in your brain that take precedence over rational thinking. That's really what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
How do you
run
overcome
a program.
that? It's an automatic program, and it shuts down the rational thinking and puts you into preservation mode.
Does this depend on your level of emotional attachment to the money?
Well, yeah, but I'm talking about this at the most primordial structure.
Mm-hmm.
Preservation, of life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm not dying. Okay.
Right. Well, I mean, trading could be viewed as a battle for, or a fight for resources.
Right.
Which is
Yeah. And so a lot, we've talked about in these interview series, a lot of things could be setting one level up from that primordial structure. But because these neural pathways don't know the difference between an internal stimulus and an external stimulus, I'll give you an example. People can get all worked up about something that's not even there.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody says something to them, and the next thing you know, they start looping stuff in their brain. The same thing happens. 100% of their mental resources are going towards looping something that can't put any fruit on their tree. Is really the easiest way to put it. And so this is why, like an athlete, is in the zone. Okay. So, when an athlete's in the zone, or a trader is in the zone, he's not thinking about paying his bills. He's not thinking about driving home. He's not thinking about what he's doing with the family. He's not thinking about money. He's not thinking about anything. He's just thinking about what he's doing right now. Nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so now there's two ways. Let me just finish that. So you can be looping this stuff in your head, which is a totally fictitious reality. Your neurology and your physiology responds to it in exactly the same way as an external stimulus of a lion chasing you or something. It shuts down all your resources.
Mm-hmm.
You're in trouble. You don't look at you. Not going to look like it by looking at you. And so this kind of responding to your environment and your world is at the core of what we've been talking about a lot in these interview series, is that a lot of people, in fact, I'm going to be so bold as to say 95% of people out there are not allocating resources in such a way as to get an end result that they're really looking for. If I put this in terms of something like the law of attraction, the law of abundance, like we talked about The Secret or something like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
You become what you think about, these kinds of things. Instead, they're thinking about all kinds of other things that can't put fruit on the tree. Now, if you are, if you don't have a clear, so I'm now going to go into the world of how you overcome this problem,
Mm-hmm.
because what you're allowing to happen is you're allowing external things, because trading is an internal experience. And I might even make the argument that it's 100% internal experience, that there isn't even anything out there. This is just something that's going on in a world that you created for yourself. I mean, after all, you got in the trade, you created the reality.
Yeah, inside of every participant, every trader.
Right.
It's not outside of us. We create the market.
Yeah, and we've talked about being 100% responsible for that reality.
Mm-hmm.
So no matter what happens in it, you are you're responsible for the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a couple of ways that you can get a handle on this. Number one is, just sum it up in one simple line: focus on what you want.
Mm-hmm.
If you focus on what you want, you're much more likely to get what you want. Now let's just say that I say that. Focus on what you want. Okay. Well, what did you want when you got in the trade?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I want it to go up. Well, guess what? Your unconscious mind doesn't know. I mean, up doesn't mean anything, because one tick up is good enough to meet that.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say focus on what you want, I mean specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you got to be smart, right? So it's got to be simple. It's got to be measurable. It's got to be as if it already is.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be repeatable, and it's got to be timed.
Mm-hmm.
All those things.
So you're saying that the letter A is visualizing it as it already happened, or usually people refer to A as attainable. Is that the same thing then?
Yeah, it is attainable. Now,
If you
what
can
I just rattled
visualize it
off,
happening, it's probably attainable.
I just made an acronym of the word SMART.
Right.
Now, I know that you got that because you just told me indirectly, but just for those who may be viewing, I just used the word SMART as an acronym. Okay. And so the letter A can stand for attainable. In other words, that it's a reasonable goal. And also that it is as if it is already exists and that it's timed. So if you are focusing on what you want and it's defined as I just described, that you have defined it with all those criteria being met that I just defined, then you know what you want. Now, if you know what you want and you don't have any beliefs or values that are in conflict with it, because I'm going to tell you right now, if your values are in conflict with what you're doing, I guarantee it's going to get sabotaged. I guarantee it. 100% sabotage. If you have any belief or value that is inconsistent with the SMART outcome that you intend. Okay. So you don't want to be anxious. You don't want to have anxiety. You don't want to be run. You don't want your life run by low-level primordial emotions that have nothing to do with preserving the body, that are shutting down your intelligence and your rationality. Then you need to have well-defined SMART goal, and you need to see it through to completion. Now I'm going to tell you something. you can have fun with this on the most simple level imaginable. Start with a parking spot. Just for fun. Start with a parking spot. Okay, I'm going to show you how you do it. Now listen, because we're not going to go over this, because this is way more than should be put into this session, but I'm going to tell you. Okay, here's what I want you to do. You're driving a car. You're going to a place, you know the parking is going to be congested. Okay? Or not. Whatever. I want you to envision the parking spot. Right now. I'm telling you to do it right now. Okay? I want you to envision the parking spot as if it is now. Is it attainable to get a parking spot? Sure, yeah, you always get it. Eventually. You might have to drive around the parking lot for 45 minutes. You live where I live. You can end up in places where you just can't find a place to park. I've parked 6, 7, 8 blocks. I go to cross country. I park a mile. I kid you not. I got to park a mile away from the event.
Wow.
A mile.
Wow.
Okay, so before I leave, what am I doing? I'm manifesting a parking spot. Okay. So I see the parking spot in my mind's eye. I may even see someone pulling out of it and waving to me or something like that. Okay. Now, it's very important you pump that up. Okay, what do I mean you pump it up? I mean bring it into the center of your field of vision, turn up the brightness, make it live, maybe make it bigger than life like it's a billboard. Bigger than life, okay? Whatever it is that makes it you start getting some goosebumps and stuff. You're like, whoa, this is the coolest parking spot ever, right? Okay, then what I want you to do is I want you to step out of the picture. So you're looking at yourself getting the parking spot. Okay? In other words, you're watching a movie of you getting a parking spot and you turning into it, all right? Now, here's what I want you to do. I want you to take that in your hands, and I want you to grab that picture, okay? I want you to grab a picture. And I want you to take that picture out. This is, I'm going to be down at Balboa Park in an hour, all right? I'm going to let my unconscious mind for me drop that 1 hour out into my future. I'm just going to go up in the air. I'm up in the air with a picture. I'm an hour out into the future, and I just drop it right down onto my timeline. Just watch it. Okay? And then I watch my entire reality reconstruct itself around that eventuality. I'm not going to call it a potentiality. It's not a potentiality. That eventuality. Okay? All right? And watch yourself manifest a parking spot. Now, I'm going to tell you something. If you can manifest a parking spot, if you can manifest the smallest thing, if you can manifest the most trivial thing, then you can manifest the most magnificent thing.
There's no difference.
There's no difference. The universe doesn't care. Okay, we're talking about things on law of attraction, law of abundance, law of success, law of manifestation. Notice I'm using the word law here. Okay? Now, everything that you've ever learned says that what I'm saying is absolute bunk. Everything you learned in school, everything that you heard people say, everything. Okay? But I'm talking about a world where 100% of what happens to you is a product of your consciousness. Now, if the world that you live in is not a product of your consciousness, then tell me how it is that some guys can make $1 billion and go broke again, and a year later they're a billionaire again. How can a guy do that? How can a guy do that 5, 6, 7 times? I mean, actually, to the point it's comedic. It's like the universe is playing with a guy because he doesn't really believe, but when he believes, it really works. And then, so how's the guy do that? So it's absurd. And how does the next guy's, standing on the corner with a little cardboard sign that says, God bless you, give me, I'm hungry. What's the difference between those two guys? I'm not condemning one, and I'm not upholding the other one as great. I actually don't think there's any difference between those two people. I don't think there's any difference, but it's just a state of your consciousness. So why not practice that and see if it works for you, and practice it with conviction. Okay. So I just told you how to do it. Just take that thing and drop it down on your timeline. Watch it manifest. If it doesn't work, keep trying it, because I'm going to tell you it works.
So do you as far as trading, do you do this before you pull the trigger, or
I know where it's going before I pull the trigger.
Okay. All right. So
I know what it's going to do. I have a whole scenario played out in my mind.
So visualizing your trading plan in this way.
Yeah. I'll say it again. You having anxiety? You having a trouble holding the trades out? Well, guess what? You didn't have a plan.
I mean, even if a person does have a plan, the doubt and the fear or the greed, which I don't really.
Then either either you didn't believe, something in your belief system was in conflict with the goal, and it very well may be. It may be that you're trading, and it's so inconsistent with what you have passion for, that it's just going to keep driving right back in your face, that you should be following your passion. Because that's what the universe will do for you. If you come to this planet, I don't mean to get all religious or esoteric or anything. Okay. If you came here, because, you see it in nature, all right? If you came here as a grapefruit seed, a little twinkle in your daddy's eye, I'm going to say it, a grapefruit seed. And your mission was given to produce grapefruits. And you decide, I'm producing screw you. I'm producing apples. Guess what? You're going to live in hell. And so I'm not trying to get all esoteric, but if you're a grapefruit, a tree, and you're trying to produce apples, you're going to live in your own personal hell. So accept that you're a grapefruit tree, love every minute of it, and do what you came to do. So, having trouble getting what you want? Well, if your beliefs or your values are inconsistent, now that could very easily sabotage your whole plan. For example, let's say, and I think I've used these examples right in these interview series. If you grew up in a household where, my mother, I had a really amazing childhood. My father was an entrepreneur and a businessman. He was very successful. Very successful guy. And he owned the largest interior design studio in the state of Michigan. I was told this, and I believe it to be true, because he was it was a big business. I worked for him for 8 years as a kid. So the average interior designer back in the 70s made like $15,000 a year or something like that. He made hundreds of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, handmade silk suits. He was just always, my dad was sharp, man. And, fancy cars and sports cars. And I mean, he was like, he was like the sexiest man alive. He could have done the Dos Equis commercials. Yeah, totally. Anyways.
Well, they're going to be looking for replacement in a few years.
Well, that's why I got this beard.
Yeah, you're working on it.
Yeah. But actually, that guy's trying to be like me.
Yes.
That guy's not from Mexico. He's from like Vermont or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No. I knew he was an actor, but I thought he was from somewhere.
No, he's just an actor from like, Rhode Island or Vermont. I forget which. Yeah, so it's pretty funny. So anyways, practice manifesting your trade. Now, if you practice this like anything else, you start to get good at it. But I'm going to tell you right now, even if what I'm saying is a bunch of garbage, then isn't it better than being anxious all the time? Sure, anything's better than what doesn't work, right? But anytime you have anxiety, I give you a solution for it. Anytime you have anxiety, the solution to the problem is focus on what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, did you hear something? Here, let me ask again. Oh, you have an anxiety? Oh, you have an indecision? Oh, you're responding to external stimuli that have nothing to do with your conviction, and you're allowing it to shake you?
Mm-hmm.
Focus on what you want.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a wonderful thing, dude, when it happens and you know, and you get conviction, and you start living your own, life starts beating to your drum.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
So, but anxiety can also come from lack of confidence in what you're doing in your strategy.
It can, and the way that I describe that experience, you describe it as that, but I describe it from more structurally. Either you're doing something in conflict with your belief or your value. Now, and I brought up this example. So, my dad's the biggest interior designer, the whole east coast of the nation or something. And my mom is very conservative, blue collar.
Mm-hmm.
They ultimately divorced over this issue
Mm.
of him being entrepreneurial
Wow.
and being his own man and not being an employee. Ultimately, that was the driving thing. She wanted security and safety. And so I grew up in an environment with these two things going on. Now, the interesting thing was my mom, as I got a little older, she went and worked at the phone company.
Mm-hmm.
And so imagine this contrast. I'll just tell you the story because stories are fun. My mother got a job at the phone company. I don't think she ever made more than about $35,000 a year, which, these days to some people could be nothing, and she didn't spend any money on anything.
Mm-hmm.
If she bought a house or something, it had to generate income. She'd always have she'd divide the house out and rent the other half and live rent free.
Mm-hmm.
Frugal, brilliant with money. My dad, on the other hand, with money,
Mm-hmm.
so sometimes they'd go in a restaurant and they'd pull out $3,000 in cash. We're talking like 1978 or something. Is that, $3,000? What are you doing, Dad? Oh yeah, a customer paid me in cash.
Mm-hmm.
But then a month later he's just walking around like that. There's a restaurant at Christmas time. He secretly gives every waiter in the place $100 bill.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking 1978. $100 is a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like that, and from his viewpoint, the universe is providing for him because he's doing what he loves.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked. And I watched it work. And then my mother, on the other hand, she wouldn't spend a penny on anything. Frugal as all get out. She loved the Mazda RX-7. She always said, oh, yeah, I wish I could have a Mazda RX-7. Oh, you should get one, Mom. Oh, no, I could never afford that. What do you mean you could never afford that, Mom? Don't you, make like $35,000 a year or something? You don't even have any rent. Oh, I could never afford that. When my mom passed away, we found $660,000 worth of stock certificates in a filing cabinet in her basement.
Wow.
Oh, she couldn't afford that car. She could have paid cash for 20 of them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
She didn't enjoy any of it. She was miserable. Every day, every time I saw her, oh, Robin, I can't stand my job. So my father is so passionate about his work. I mean, it'd give you goosebumps just to see it. Mother, can't stand my job. And I certainly can't enjoy any of the fruits of the labor. How tragic, how tragic. And so I grew up with these two things weighing out.
Mm-hmm.
So I say, even if you think what I'm saying is a bunch of bunk, why not live like my dad? And I'm not going to tell you to live like me. You know, I do well, but I'm not going to tell you. But what I do know is that I grew up watching a man who was doing what he loved, had no conflict of values or beliefs anywhere along any of it, and it was just awesome. But boy, I'm thankful to my mother for giving me the contrast. Okay, now I'm not bashing my mom, because I'm frugal too. But what I'm saying is, you can manifest things and practice manifestation, and when you do it with conviction, nothing will shake you. Yeah, but what if I get stopped out? Well, if you're thinking you're going to get stopped out, I'm pretty much assure you it's going to happen for you, because you're going to manifest what you're thinking. So now, if this truly is your dream to be a trader, and you're having trouble holding the trades out, but something's getting in your way, like your mom kept saying to you the whole time growing up, I can't stand my job, I gotta go to work, I can't spend any money, I can't enjoy the fruits of my labor. You know, all this stuff is like programmed into you from the age of 4. And so you're actually walking around running all these programs that are completely in denial of what you're trying to do. If those programs that are operating in there are causing you to not be able to live from your own enlightened self-interest. Listen to that phrase, living from your own enlightened self-interest. Then you need to address those issues, because not doing so could cause you, I'm not going to say could, I'm being nice. It will cause you to not achieve your goal, and you need to shake that thing that's been passed down to you genealogically through your experience with your parents and your bloodline and everything. So and so you have to do something about it. Not acting is a sin. Not acting is a sin, because you're a grapefruit tree and something's preventing your roots from working, but you know the problem's there and you're not doing anything about it. So you are actually knowingly blocking yourself from being what you are. That's a sin. That's my interpretation. And I'm thankful to my father for having the opportunity of seeing him operate so with such conviction in the way I described. So you're not holding your trades out. Well, you didn't have a plan. So get smart about your plan. Drop it out on your timeline. Showed you how to do that. Follow my instructions exactly as I described it.
Focus on what you want.
Watch, if you got to watch this video 47 times, or just have a session with me. You know, I mean, it's like crazy. You know, oh well, I don't want to spend any money on myself, but I'll gladly lose money trading.
Right.
No, well, you know, come on, you manifest. You know why? Because when you manifest, everybody around you benefits from it. Everybody around you, make the whole world a better place. You're not just doing it for you. You're doing it for the whole world. Somebody so loved the world that he gave himself to it. That whosoever should believe that would have an everlasting life. Wow. What? What? Yeah. Manifest what you are, and you get it all. So now, this is the path of that straight and narrow. You gotta stay on it. So it's a work in progress always. So so that's how you get in winning trades. And if it's truly what you want to do in life, if you're not manifesting what you know you should be with conviction, and you're ready to change it, then you better do something about it, because it's not going to change, because those are primordial structures that you learned that are stuffed down in your unconscious in little black bags that take an hour to clear out,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not going away. I promise you they're not going away. Now, you can try and overcome those with just pure conviction. Okay. It's like me. I can decide with conviction. I don't know why I can do this. Probably because my dad was just so crazy, so intense. But, if I get too heavy, I just go, okay, I'm going to drop 20 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And I do it. Okay, well, most people can't do that,
Mm-hmm.
but I can. I smoked cigarettes for 19 years.
Mm-hmm.
One day I just go, doesn't make sense for me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Boom, stopped.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't even look back. These kinds of things. You got to do something about it. Now, so you can do it with brute force, but that won't make the problem go away. So then what's going to happen is it's going to take a tremendous amount of your energy to maintain what your more primordial neurological structures are trying to enforce. You can overcome them consciously. But let me tell you something. As soon as you get tired or you come under pressure or something like that, you're going to make bad decisions because those more primordial structures in your brain that are programs that are running in your brain are going to take precedence, because the unconscious mind never sleeps.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not like, your heart stops beating while you're sleeping, right?
Mm-hmm.
That bad boy's running 24/7 since before you were born.
Mm-hmm.
And so this conscious one that, 7 + 5 = 12, that thing's got to sleep. It gets tired.
Mm-hmm.
But the other mind, for operating 24/7 optimally pretty much all the time. And so you can't win against it. And so you can for a short time. But then, anyways.
You gotta learn how to work with it.
Yeah, so this is a huge topic, but start with some of the things that I've given you here. If you want to change some things, reach out to me.
Mm-hmm. Good.
I can help you with it. It's always a work in progress. It's just like little layers coming off the onion. You just get better and better and better. But it's through experience that we achieve or make ourselves better, and it's through failure. We actually fail our way to success.
Mm-hmm.
As you were telling me about an entrepreneur before we started the session today. You're listening to an audiobook of this guy. Don't tell me that this guy didn't have hardship that was uncomprehensible, unimaginable hardships that he overcame
Mm-hmm.
to become to manifest his desires. It's hard work,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Just keep driving at it.
He's the hardest man I know. The hardest working man. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he sleeps. He might sleep 3 hours a day.
Right.
The guy's nonstop for years.
Yeah, that's passion.
Mm-hmm.
That's passion. Yeah. And so you when you find your passion, nothing's going to stop you from doing it. But sheer conviction works to some level. But trading is a different animal because it kind of goes against the basic things that you learn. Like you get paid for. Some people think that you get paid for work. Well, in capitalism, you don't.
Get paid for results.
Yeah, you get paid for being in the right place at the right time. You get paid for positioning, and so it gets a little tricky. And when you're operating because capitalism is a substitute reality. There's no cause and effect in it, no physical cause and effect, and so it can be really complicated. It's a really abstract idea that there's a market, and that there's this money going in and out of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really abstract notion, and so trading becomes a really abstract notion. And anyways, yeah. So big topic there, but I think we covered some key points.
Mm-hmm.
If something's preventing you from being the magnificent person that you truly are, then you need to seek out the resources to make it start getting magnificent.
Mm-hmm.
And then everything changes for you. Everything changes.
Thank you. Let's shift gears and get into technicals. Let's talk about, and we'll start today, and we'll probably continue in the next interviews. Let's talk about market profile, volume profiles.
Sure.
What the heck they are, and how does it work? How does it help us?
Okay. We can just start that from kind of a computational basis. I'll put up a couple of market profile charts here. Basically, if you look at a bunch of, let me pull up, something that I can draw on for a second. We'll just get some ideas here. Okay. If these are 30-minute bars, and I got a bunch of them going here.
Mm-hmm.
And I ask myself, what line could I draw through that it would touch the most bars?
Mm-hmm.
Probably right about there. Maybe a little bit lower. Yeah, a little bit lower, because then I could touch all of them except for that one right there.
Mm-hmm.
I can touch all of them. Oops. So you guys are going to think I'm drinking. I said he could control himself. Okay. There I touched all the line, all of them except for that one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 out of 8. Okay. That line right there in market profile is called the point of control.
Mm-hmm.
We'll call it POC, so you don't have to keep saying all those words. Okay. Now, point of control is a way of arbitrarily, semi-arbitrarily, deciding what fair value is for the session, because it's the most commonly traded price
Mm-hmm.
on a 30-minute basis. Okay. So if I were above that, I would be moving away from, be moving up and away from value, because there's a difference between value and price.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, sitting at the foundation of this kind of analysis is the idea of what's the difference between value and price, because price could be way higher than value.
So does this have to do with the time factor, or value is established over time versus price is now?
Yeah, well, as I'm describing it here, I'm using 30-minute bars,
Mm-hmm.
and the line that will touch the most of them.
Mm-hmm.
That's called a TPO in market profile.
Right.
But you could use volume, but that may or may not be more helpful. And statistically, they're probably not too dissimilar. And so I just use the TPO example because it's easier to describe.
Mm.
I could spend a half hour describing how you do the volume. But anyways, then what you do is you take 70%, 68%, which is one standard deviation statistically. Hold on a minute, because I got to trade. I got to trade at 58 minutes after the hour. You're going to take 68% on either side of that. Now, more of the price action is above, and so you're probably going to get we call it the value area high and the value area low, somewhere in there, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Plus or minus. It's not rocket science. And that area right there encompasses 68% of all the price action
Mm-hmm.
for the day.
Or
Now,
for
you look
any
at
period
that.
of time, right? Whatever.
If you look at that, you'll say, Rob, that's not 68%. So, something like that. Whatever. and the other 30% is outside of it. Okay, so the idea here is that 68% is one standard deviation. So that's why you're using 68%.
Mm-hmm.
So it means 68% of all of the agreement about value is 68% of the. And if you go outside of that, then the price is starting to get away from value.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In other words, it's starting to move into an area of disagreement.
Mm-hmm.
Because 68% is one standard deviation. It covers 68% of all cases. So we could call that normal.
Mm-hmm.
So it's normal to be inside of this area.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that is kind of at the basic idea of market profile. And then what they do is they plot that onto the chart. You can see it on this one easily because I've got it in green.
Mm-hmm.
And so now, ideally, if this whole theory was going to be true, then the profile would look something like this.
Mm-hmm.
Something like a bell-shaped curve.
Mm-hmm.
If this whole theory was true. But you don't really get that because financial data is actually skewed. You get days like this. Here you get like 3 bell curves or something approximating a bell curve. I can't really draw that on there. But this is, you call it trimodal.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 3 curves in one. This one's a little bit kind of bellish
Mm-hmm.
with a skewing down here. So the midpoint of it's like right there, right?
We also call it D shape.
Yeah, D shape, that's right. Or B shape. This one's a B shape.
Mm-hmm. Or a P.
You got to go in the other way. This is more like a P shape,
Mm-hmm.
right? P shape. And those are your basic ones.
Mm-hmm.
And so the shapes, you can actually learn on the shapes kind of what's going on. There's a lot of times a B, like this price action right here, gets retraced into. So these lines right here are the value, are the ones that come all the way out to here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so what happens is when you get a B shape, so B shape looks like this.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that, right? What'll happen is price action will make its way back down into that value area and recover the B. Similarly, when you get a P shape, I'd call this a P shape. I would expect this market to probably come on down probably tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Probably come on down into this area right in there. And so you can actually start trading the shapes,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of cool. I'll tell you another cool thing about market profile. Call these, somebody calls these anomalies. Okay, you see how there's a notch in there?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that could also be called a single print. See, there's just one bar going through there.
Mm-hmm.
A single print is like you go out on the highway and there's no cars on there.
Mm-hmm.
So you can go through it. You can drive through it easily.
Mm-hmm.
So if the market comes down into this region here and makes a little foray down into here, it's going all the way through.
Mm-hmm. Fast. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the prices, it's not a fair value at those prices.
No. And so, you very well could, do that.
Mm-hmm.
Coming down into that mode.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you can start doing all kinds of interesting things with profile charts. Most, like some of these things that I'm showing you here, aren't necessarily mainstream. But there are three basic scenarios that I'll tell you about that are worthwhile. One is where are you opening?
Mm-hmm.
Because the profile, the way I'm drawing them here, the profile is from yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And so the question is, where am I opening with respect to yesterday's value?
Mm-hmm.
Because if I'm opening outside of it, then that means that there's a change in perceived value in the market. In other words, the price is out of value. And that is, so like if you're at the grocery store and you go there every week and, there's 6 rolls of toilet paper in that pack. I haven't been to a grocery store in 10 years, so I don't even really know what I'm talking about. But I remember when I was in college because we knew everything down to the penny.
Mm-hmm.
We'd even go to a different store if it was like 10 cents cheaper.
Right.
So there's 6 packs of toilet paper in that pack, and they're 25 cents each. That's $1.50. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you come into the store today, and it's 99 cents.
Mm-hmm.
That's like getting 2 rolls for free, dude.
Mm-hmm.
So, you're going to load up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or whatever. So, the market is driven by this. So, what happened there? Price came down. Price came down from $1.50 down to $1. And what did it find? It found me.
Mm-hmm.
Found a buyer.
Mm-hmm.
So prices go down to find buyers. Prices go up to find sellers. So from that viewpoint, price is just exploring what is value.
Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like running advertisement.
It's a running auction.
Auction. Mm-hmm.
It's a running auction that goes in one direction. And I love to use the example because, you see it in movies, Mr. Bean or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or the Thomas Crown Affair or whatever, where there's an art auction.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got some high, flute thing, and they're going to sell some art for, a bunch of money or whatever. And so let me go over this for you because I think this will be instructive today for you to understand just keeping the auction as a closed room. I also talk to my students about what happens when the participants in the room are changing out while the auction is going on.
Mm-hmm.
What happens if Bill Gates steps into the room? I think we may have talked about something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like everything changes, right? So you got 50. Let's make it 100 just so it's even. You got 100 people in the room, okay? And the auctioneer comes out and it goes, "We have this cell phone that was owned by, Oscar Mayer Wiener, and has a fine provenance and blah blah blah." And you go, "I'm opening up bidding on this fine piece of art for $1,000." Okay. Now, at that point, it's not known. So this is like the initial probe at price discovery. It's not known, if they're really going to go for it, but they kind of estimate, the auction house. They kind of know. And so they go, yeah, we'll start at 1,000, take it from there, right? So this is 1,000. If somebody raises their thing, I'll go, 1,000. Okay. Well, now, at this point, one person in the room agrees that that's worth 1,000. And since only one person bidded, I can kind of go on the assumption that 99 of them don't agree, at least for now. Okay. And then, well, do I hear 1,025 or whatever? Okay, somebody else raises the paddle. Ooh, game is on. Now 2 of them agree, right, that it's worth more than 1,000. And next thing you know, they're bidding the darn thing up to $5,000. It's a cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
They bid the thing up to $5,000, and 72 of the participants in the room are doing this. Okay. Well, what's happening is the participants in the room are progressively agreeing that it's worth more and more. And until at some point, at some key point, he goes, well, do I hear 6,000? At which point a good chunk of the room starts saying, I ain't paying those $6,000 for this stupid cell phone. You can get one over at Verizon for $700,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so then what happens is people start going into, that's crazy. At which point, up at $9,000, one guy in the room, this is what I think is really funny about auctions, one guy in the room buys it.
Mm-hmm.
He gets it. $9,000. And what is absolutely true at that point is 99 people in the room think that's insane, and one is left holding the bag. Now, what does that look like on a chart? That's when you buy right there. That's when and we've all done it, masterfully, right? If you don't believe in the law of a manifestation, then how on earth can you buy right there? Or sell right there? How do you do it? You've done it. We've all done it. Anybody who's traded for any length of time has bought the high of the day.
It's going to the moon.
That's right, baby. It's going to the moon. So what happens is you ran out of buyers. You ran out of buyers, and one sucker. I love this. So what's it got to do? It's got to go lower to find buyers again. Because if you start bringing the price back down, you start reversing the auction. The people in the room will start hopping back on again. That's how you get a trend. And it's got to do this wave thing, and then it'll even get people that thought it was crazy. If it goes through a few waves, it'll even get people who thought it was crazy at 9,000 bidding it up at 10.
Because they got a second chance or whatever.
Well, and it's a runaway at that point, and they start going. Now we're hardwired. People are hardwired to think like the crowd, and so and that's subject to change at a moment's notice. It's just the way your neurology is wired. We're talking about things that can sabotage you earlier. If you don't have conviction about what your overall goal is, a wise person goes into the auction with some goal and plan as to what would be an acceptable. But the reason that auction houses exist is very specifically because they know that you're going to sell at the 1 in 100 price. Because 99 people in the room disagree that it's worth that. So if you're a seller, auction's great if there's a market there.
Yeah.
So this is basically, now in a financial market, that auction is theoretically unending. It just goes. up and down and up and down, and it's constantly reorienting itself, and some people are coming into the room, some are leaving. You can't see them because it's all electronic. And that's what makes a market. And so, but market profile is an attempt to define what is normal within that framework. And so that's what I drew on the screen right here, is what is normal, 68%. Now, 3 scenarios. Either you're going to open inside of value, you're going to open above it or below it. Okay. Now, textbook, this happens all the time. You open above value, what do you expect? Okay. If I open above value, I expect to come down. Here, it did it right here. Okay, here's the value area, and it opens maybe above, and then it comes down and it tags into the value area. Textbook would be it tags into the point of control. It tags into the point of control, the midpoint, some form of theoretical midpoint, or the value area high, the 68% upper band, and continues higher. Okay. If you open inside, I'll expect it to play pinball in some fashion, because it's opened with agreement as to the valuation. In other words, okay, we all went home last night at 5, and the price was, $20.51. Everybody agreed. And we all went home at 5. We all agreed it was $20.51. We all came back this morning, and it's still $20.51. So nobody's going to quite be willing to stick their foot out there and push it higher or lower, because you could get eaten because it's not with a crowd. But if the Europeans step in overnight and push that thing out, to 2060, you're now 9 handles above where you closed yesterday. Then there's going to be 2 camps on that open. One is going to be saying, well, let's cover the gap. One camp is saying, let's cover it down to the gap so that I can get in at yesterday's close, because I know that's fair. Because we all agreed yesterday it was fair. So I'm going to buy. So it gaps up, come back down to the prior day's close, where everybody agreed that was fair.
Or value.
Get a lot of buyers there. You get a lot of buyers there. For obvious reasons, right? So this is what's nice about market profile, is it creates a context for understanding what's going on. But we've done some things with market profile that take it to a whole nother level. We've developed statistics around those bars and things. And, well, we could get to that, but that'd be another discussion. But so those are your basic 3 scenarios. You opened above, you opened in range, in value rather, and then you open below. Now another one that's a really interesting is if you are trending up several days or intervals and you close out of value to the downside, that's very bearish. Because then everybody's going home going, well, or they didn't want to be long going into such a weak close, and so because it's now an invitation to sell, because we closed below value after several days up, and you could start you could open the next day down, gap down, right? You don't want to be carrying that, and so it's pretty scary to close below value after several days uptrend. Similarly, if you've been going down for a number of days and you open above value, it's a form of a breakout. Yeah. And so those are 5 different playable scenarios for you. Then what we do is we lay our logical structure, price action structure into that framework, and then we trade it from there. Market profile people don't generally do that. They'll generally try to fade the market around those areas. You can also start looking at relationships of the overlap of the value areas and this sort of thing, and that can get a little bit more complicated.
Mm-hmm. How do you trade the composite?
A lot of traders, I have a composite here on this one, for example. You can see it. I have that going the other way, right? A lot of traders will consider trading towards a high volume node.
Mm-hmm.
High volume is where it's sticking out more, right? Like right there.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll notice you got a lot of price clustering around there. I think I have that set to like 220 days or something like that. No, it's 22 days. I'm sorry. This one's 200 or 22 days, so it's a little over a month or so.
And this one includes the night session.
In fact, it does.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So traders will consider that this would come up and it trades into this low volume area and then it fades away from it. However, I find that other things that I've shown you today to be much more effective than that, because it's just too wishy-washy and complicated to really do good statistical work on it or anything like that. Because what really constitutes a high volume node or whatever, you're going to get into some really higher level mathematics. What I showed you earlier with anomalies, it's gold.
So just like we came down in a day session down to the night session's VPOC and then kind of bounce off of there.
Yeah. But I don't put a tremendous amount of, and I used to. In the early days, composites were, and you can run those at like 5 days, or you could run them for the week. So, like for example, today's Thursday. We could make that composite 4 days. Now that's the composite for the week. Okay. And so those levels may be much more valuable than something that's pulling data from a month ago.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And from that viewpoint, you can see that this came up into a low volume node, today's high. So,
right, and that's what I was saying. It also came down into the night session POC.
This
at 3782.
3782. Oh, that level is that right there.
Right, that's a day session coming down, testing the night session VPOC.
That was this morning's open, actually.
Right.
The first 30 minutes.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why we bounced there, because we tested that value or the POC.
Yeah. Well, this is exactly what we talked about. Yeah. Okay, I get what you're saying.
Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly what we drew earlier. That region right there was the thickest part of that profile. And so, yes, you're exactly right. We came down and so that's kind of textbook, We came down, we tagged into value. And it got rejected there.
That's a POC there, right? These are volumes, so that's VPOC right there, right?
No, this is
is that TPO?
TPO. Yeah, I find TPO. See, here's the thing. Volume's okay, but you can do simple statistics on the TPO.
Oh yeah, they're easier to analyze there.
Yeah, and they're not really statistically different. Okay, so somebody might argue that. I'm not going to defend that, but basically,
by definition, they have to be similar.
Yeah, well, of course they're similar, and they're probably not statistically similar. Now, I've spent thousands of hours in my life doing what's called repeated measures analysis. Basically, what you do is you look at two different. Let's say you're using TradeStation, and I probably showed you this back in the day when we were working together and with systems and stuff. Here's what you do. You do Ninja or whatever. Okay, you run an optimization on a system across a wide range of parameters. What you do is you dump every single one of the equity curves into an Excel file. Okay. Then what you do is you analyze whether or not the equity curves are. You take the best one and you take the worst one. Actually, you could do all the combinations, but you take the best one and you take the worst one, and you analyze them for statistical significance. So you're basically asking, is this best equity curve? You want to talk about something that's a nasty statistical test that will teach you a lot about trading. You take the very worst one and you take the very best one, and you find out that they're not statistically different. So you know, it's like really, it'll blow your mind, because you've got one equity curve. You got one equity curve that looks like this. And then you got another one that looks like this. And you're like, well, that one made, $14,000, and this one made nothing. And you analyze them, no difference. You'll learn a lot about trading really fast with that. And so what it's saying is that what it's really saying is that because of all this variance, the fact that was at a high was just by chance. Because the way this equity curve's going, it could be all the way back down here
in a couple of trades.
Yeah, exactly. Those equity curves are statistically identical. So
they both suck.
Yeah, right. But what we do is we take the same kind of idea and we're applying it to the bars. We're applying them literally to the TPOs and looking at how statistically different they are. And what that does is it starts opening up all kinds of interesting possibilities that become in your mind eventualities. We'll tie back to that earlier word that we used. And so, anyways, those are some good concepts from Market Profile that I use that can be helpful. There's just tons of information out there. It's kind of a black hole, and I urge you. And this is a problem. And I'm not saying anything about Market Profile or anything. But what I am saying about it is it's simply a method for understanding the difference between price and value. Okay. Now, everybody knows if you tell a story, and you get it in circulation, and people are passing it around, that the story will start taking on legs of its own. And people are going to embellish it and make it more interesting, because stories are fun, And so you're going to end up with a story that's way different than what was intended. Well, market profile is a simple statistical generality that helps understanding the difference between value and price.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a religion. It's not a profound realization about the nature of reality. Because anything, if anything, markets do not organize themselves in, well, I mean, simply ask yourself the question, how many of those curves are bell-shaped? Okay, let's do, here I'm going to show you how I'll do just some simple stats. Let me put a little bit of data on this chart. So put 50 days on there. Okay, we'll do that real quick, and then, so the question is, how many of these are bell-shaped? Well, okay. I'll give it to you on this one. So if I say bell shape, if I can get that kind of a shape out of the whole day, okay, I'll give it to you on that one. I'll give it to you on this one. That's 2. I'll give it to you on that one. That's 3. Oh, 4. This is actually a little higher than I thought. You'd never get this in crude oil.
Mm-hmm.
It's another one. Pretty normal day. Normal day. I'll give it to you on that one. I'm going to disprove my hypothesis here.
Mm-hmm.
This one doesn't qualify because we only took part of it, because we're doing this for the whole day, right? I'll give it to you on this one. And I'll give it to you on that one. Okay. So I won't include today. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 66% of the time, I'm going to round that to 68 because it's just too much fun. 68% of the time, we got a normal profile.
Distribution.
Okay. So that's on the ES. So that's usable, right? 2 out of 3 days, I'm not going anywhere in this market. Not going to happen in crude oil. But in the ES, in the span of 15 days, 3 weeks, there's a 2/3 chance that I'm staying in value, or that I'm building a value area. Well, what does that tell me? It tells me there's a 68% chance that I will do well playing from the edges in this market right now. Now, a few weeks more back, we were having 30 and 40 handle ranges, and you would have gotten killed trading that way. Okay, so you got to be careful what environment you're in. But as it stands right now, and I'd like a little bit bigger sample, but I just gave you an example of how you can just make a simple statistic on something. Rule of thumb, heuristics. We use heuristics to determine how to trade the market. And that just means rule of thumb, right? So right now, 2/3 of the days are like that. Now, I'll give you another secret about trading that we haven't talked about. If you're not going to be a day that's normal in the end, here I'll pose it as a question. How early in the day will you know?
That it's not a normal day?
Yeah, how early in the day will you know?
An hour and a half?
You'll know very early. Yeah, because trends tend to commence fairly early in the day. Because of the value discrepancy. So then my next question would be, how soon can you tell that you are trading out of value?
As soon as you're open, or always. Oh,
Well,
out of today's.
I'm beckoning one to research it.
Hmm. Well,
You know,
that's the thing. When you open in the morning, you only have to work with yesterday's value or overnight value.
Mhm.
But for today's value to develop, you know, people initial balance.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that range expansions tend to commence early in the day.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Right.
but the other question is, could I refine the point at which that is knowable? And if you could, and I think you can, I don't know it for the ES, or I'd be saying,
Hmm.
because I can tell you in the markets that I trade, or in the market I trade, mostly crude oil, that you will know that fairly early in the day, and because the price will break out of will be breaking out of value, and it will be exhibiting trend characteristics of forming wave structures.
Hmm.
And so you could actually create, if you were patient as a trader, you could look for these range expansion days, like is happening here and here, here. The ones that didn't get marked, all those are range expansion days. And so you would then be basically creating a system where you could, in some reasonable measure, with a reasonable percentage of correctness, trade back into the range on 68% of days, and the other 32% of days get caught in a trend.
Hmm. Moving away from value.
Yeah. And so you just research it. You just I mean, look how simple this was that I just did.
Hmm.
I just basically took the profiles, I turned them into a simple shape, I took a percentage on it, and then I made a hypothesis about what it might be like trading in intraday. So I took a higher level idea and I funneled it down into the level of action. And then, of course, smartly focus on on what you want that is based on those expectations. Like, is it reasonable for the market to be on any given day just seeking out value, like it did today? The ES went nowhere today,
Hmm.
pretty much, and so I think the range for the ES today was 13. No, 11.
Mm.
It's
Wow.
11.
Mm.
And so this is a pretty tight little range, right?
Hmm.
Well, that was 68% predictable based on my simple statistical analysis, which was actually against the hypothesis that I was expecting. But actually, when I thought about it after, I realized that's entirely true lately for the last 2 weeks. Yeah.
Hmm.
And then you monitor that. You just move in the stat forward.
Hmm.
Just redo it every day. Just go take account. Hey, last 30 days, what is it? Last 20 days, what is it?
Mm.
And then that gives you a framework for what the market's doing and how it behaves as a personality, because you're using statistics to define what is the personality of the market.
Hmm.
And then you'll start gaining an intuitive understanding of that enables you to trade with conviction and knowing what those stats are, because that was the other thing that I was going to bring full circle in our earlier discussion. And that is, when you know what your stats are, then you know what's possible or even probable. And so that the expectation, or better, as I put it, eventuality in your mind is realistic.
Hmm.
But if you don't do the kinds of things that I just did on the screen and counted them up and everything else, you don't know what's normal. And so naturally you're neurotic as all get out about holding your trade, because you don't even know where you are.
Hmm.
You don't even know if
You don't know what to expect.
if it's reasonable to continue.
Hmm.
because I can pretty much tell you that the ES is not going to open up down 100 handles tomorrow.
Yeah.
That would be like absurd. But some people would position themselves for a trade like that. Doesn't even do that in a month, right? So why do you think it's going to happen in the next 20 minutes?
Yeah.
Why are you thinking that way? Well, because you haven't done any work to understand the landscape that you're working on. I mean, when you drive to the grocery store, you don't have to go over a mountain to get there. You don't need like some mega 4-wheel, 6-wheel drive Mercedes from a hunting movie. So, the landscape, and because one of those smart criteria was that it's reasonable. It should make sense. You shouldn't try to manifest a mountain in your backyard by tomorrow at noon, because the universe probably going to not deliver that. But it might deliver a gopher in the middle of your yard.
Yeah. That's no problem.
Hey, you need a gopher in your yard. You can manifest it. Rob told me how to do it. And see if you can't manifest that one. So, anyways, that's kind of a sum up on that. But
very good. Good. Thank you for that market profile introduction, and we'll talk about that in the next interviews and other things. So it's been almost an hour and a half, so it's a good good place to finish. And again, thank you so much, Rob, for doing the interview.
Yeah, and thanks for having me and doing these. I think this particular session today covered a lot of things that kind of bring together a lot of the kinds of ideas that we've been talking about. And so I think it's good today. So okay,
awesome.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
Thanks for doing these. Yeah, thanks for sharing.
Till next time.
Yeah,
bye.
See you.